All right, welcome to this week's digital book report by Coach Gaines. I know y'all have been missing it, probably wondering where it's been. And in honor of just recently turning 40, I'm wearing some readers that have no lenses, so they really do help me read. Uh, and I'm sporting some gray, so all that good stuff. So this week's edition. I just finished reading a book, as you can see on the screen, called Moonwalking with Einstein by a guy named Joshua Ford. A buddy of mine that I used to coach against told me about this book, and I at first was a little skeptical because he said I could apply it to coaching, and because it was about memory and about why the Western education system, part of the book is why the Western education system thinks memory's bad. But that's not the gist of the book. The gist of the book is this Joshua Ford guy has been tasked with writing an article, and he stumbles upon the World Memory Championships. Who knew they had such a thing? But it is real. And he meets some of the players, some of the characters. And I call them characters because when he describes them, they are characters, but they're real. But and you would think that because they're in memory championships, and they're doing all these weird recalls and how many cards in a deck can you memorize in 30 seconds? How many names can you memorize? One of the, in the American Memory Championships, one of the deals is someone walks up and introduces himself and tells you like 10 facts about themselves. And it could be birth dates, death dates of a parent. And you have to remember all that. And so Josh goes to this event and he gets to know one of the players pretty well that says, look, memory is, it's not being a savant. And if you don't know what a savant would be a genius or someone who has a skill that is exceedingly exceeds expectations of what we would consider normal. He says, I can train you in a year to where you can compete in the American Memory Championships. In essence, that the brain is like a muscle. It just needs to be used over and over and over. And they go through all these techniques. It's kind of an intellectual read at times where if you're looking for characters and fictional, you're not going to find it here. You're going to find a real, sometimes scientific read. But he does a good job of keeping you engaged with who these characters are. I say characters because these people are such, like, I just wonder what it would be like to meet one of them. So, long story short, he trains for a year and he does all these memory exercises, and I won't tell you what ends up happening, but he discusses a few things that in the book that as I'm reading, I'm going, okay, now I understand why my buddy thought as a coach I could use this book, some of the information in this book. And one of the things he talks about, or two things he talks about that I think are really cool in regards to coaching, teaching, directing, leadership, whatever case you may say. He talks about something called the OK plateau. And the OK plateau is where we as human beings, when we reach a certain level, let's say, I use typing as an example because I took a computer typing class in high school and stuff. And, you used to have to measure, could you type 110 words a minute? Could you blah, blah, blah. Those were the tests you would take. And you talk about it and you say, okay, well, I reached that. I got it. I hit the mark. I got 100 because I could do 110 words a minute. And then we become satisfied with that's good. And it is good. It's above average probably. But is it the best we could do? And that's where he takes you on this journey through this memory, is having this memory coach or memory teacher pushing him past. Okay, yes, you can memorize 32 digits of pi, but can you memorize 40? How many random numbers can you memorize in 1 minute? And stuff like that. So the practice over and over and over, the repetition. And so towards the end of the book, he comes to this statement that as teachers and coaches, we've said 100,000 times about practice makes perfect. And then I've always heard perfect practice makes perfect. But in this book and also in a podcast by Freakonomics that I have listened to before, I've heard the same terminology about deliberate practice. And so the author Foer says, his learning, what he learned from his memory training was that you can train anything to do something. You can train your mind to do it. It didn't enhance necessarily his memory skills as to could he remember where he put his keys, but because he practiced in a concentrated, self-conscious, deliberate way, he was able to attain a certain status in the memory world. And just a neat little tidbit, in the memory world, Americans don't fare very well in world competition. The European countries beat us quite handily regularly. So if you're into somewhat of an intellectual read, it's not an easy read per se, but as I said earlier, Mr. Ford does a good job of keeping you engaged with who these people are and the characters they are. So I know that I took away from it that the okay plateau is something I got to be better at, not just be okay with being okay. Being good, it can be okay. I can be better. And I think that's what we have to realize, that teachers, coaches, directors are always trying to get out of you as students is don't just be okay. Don't just be okay with being able to read so many books a month, or, try to always be bettering and go over that next step. So that's this week's Digital Book Report, coming to you live from Coach Gaines in Denton, Texas. Peace out.